Jerseys of Hope is a nonprofit committed to inspiring a sense of community and well-being in hospitals through the donation of athletic jerseys to be worn by patients rooting for their favorite team. In the past 7 years, Jerseys of Hope has given out over 2,000 jerseys to lift the spirits of hospital patients. They have impacted the needy in 4 countries and 11 states. Please visit jerseysofhope.org to learn more. We're so honored to partner with Jerseys of Hope and be a small part of the large impact they make.
I've known pain in my heart, I've known pain in my body. I've asked God the questions all time and again. Is there anything too hard for you? I've seen the morning.
Hey everyone, this is Aaron. Welcome back to the Unscripted Podcast. Unscripted comes to you each episode from our Jerseys of Hope studios here in Columbus, Ohio. You can find out more about them at jerseysofhope.org. Our new intro song is called Stand on Your Promises by my dear friend and recording artist Kate Stanford. It was written and performed by Kate Stanford, Jamie Jangoshan, and Sam Hart. Produced by Sam Hart. You can find Kate on all your streaming platforms at katestanfordmusic.com. But for now, here's today's episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to my Jerseys of Hope studios here in Hilliard, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. You know, I had the opportunity of the blessing of somehow being on a platform with some incredible people just about a month ago. And one of them was my guest today, and I could not wait to have her on. And she has an incredible platform. She is incredible. She is a joy. And I guarantee you, when you listen to this podcast today, you're going to be inspired as well. So, Tammy, can you just introduce yourself and we'll go from there?
Well, I'm Tammy Whitehurst, and as you can tell, I'm not from Ohio because my accent gives me away as strong Southern woman. A lot of times they will say I'm Texas raised, Jesus saved, loving all things cheetah. I figure that's better than being a cougar. So anyway, but when it comes to us Southern gals, you never know what you're going to get coming to you from Texas. And I've actually spoken to Ohio a couple of times. But if I had to sum up an introduction for myself, Aaron, I would say sinner saved by grace, period.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is unscripted. So we're going to go unscripted today. I know you have an incredible website, by the way. People need to go. So let's just go right there, right at the beginning. What is your website?
It's TammyWhitehurst.com.
And I have had, since our connection on that platform, I've had so many people that I've talked to, and every website conversation I had. So I was invited into this incredible speaking, conference, Speak Up Conference. Yeah. Shout out Speak Up Conference. I was invited into that to talk about websites, which I'm not sure why, but when I did, everybody's like, I want one like Tammy's. So that website, check it out because it's incredible. You're incredible. I could not wait to have you on. We saw each other in the hallway at that thing. And I have to say this at the very, very beginning. There is a quote. You were one of the keynote speakers at this incredible conference. One of the keynote speakers. And if I get this quote wrong, please let me know. But I tried to type it as quick as I heard it because it blew my mind. And it was, people are born looking like their parents and die looking like their decisions.
That's exactly.
Can you talk about that for a minute?
I go a lot of different routes with that one line, and it can go a lot of different routes because, in life, we're going to have smooth sailing and we're going to have hard detours. And whenever I say that we're born looking like our parents and we die looking like our decisions, there's so many decisions that we make in the course of our life, whether we live a long time or whether we don't. But those decisions can lead to so many damaging detours, like unforgiveness. Unforgiveness will lead to bitterness. Bitterness is the consequence of something that's happened when forgiveness didn't happen. And we can always see those people that have bitterness. And that is one of those decisions that we make that we do look like whenever we die. Because you can see a bitter person a mile away. There's no spark in their eye. There's no skip in their step. There's no joy in their heart. Because I know that, the Lord tells us, no weapon formed against us shall prosper. He doesn't say that the weapons won't form. And when bitterness comes in a form that can just take us over, the only solution is forgiveness. And whenever people forgive, their entire countenance changes, the look on their face changes, their life changes.
So you have, and I don't want to jump past that because you're absolutely right. And I'm trying to keep it together already because that quote got me. It got me. I'm an empath. Yeah. Okay. So I want to go to right away. I want to go to, how did you get to where you are today? I think let's just tell your story. Like you are inspiring so many people. And since platform, moment a month ago, I have had so many people not just talk about your website, but talk about you. And so when I'm on consulting calls now, they're like, I want what, Tammy? I want, they've referenced you. How did you come to this place where, and I know you're going to give credit to Jesus, right? But what's your story? Can you share your story?
I will. And I'll tell you right now that instead of inspiring, I might be perspiring a little bit with all of that right there. But, I started out and I always wanted to be an undercover FBI agent. Now,
for real? For real?
Absolutely. I've got the criminal justice degree to prove it. And the craziest thing is people usually laugh when I say I want to be undercover because there's nothing undercover about me. But my voice is like, people can hear me before I ever enter a room. My voice enters before my body does. And the thing is, when you go out, that's what I wanted to be, though, because going through high school, I was usually getting in trouble. But I tried to stay out of the teacher's eye. I tried to do things behind the scenes that were sneaky and funny and all those things, because life to me, if we were laughing, we were living. And that's how I looked at it. Now, I got my last whooping at home when I was like 16. I mean, my little old bitty 5-foot mama, I've always been that person who liked to live on the edge. And criminal justice degree, I thought, man, that's exciting. That's going to be an exciting life, living on the edge, all the things I wanted to do, undercover drug enforcement. Well, I went to work for a defense attorney, and I quickly figured out that this is not the area that I wanted to be in. So I went back to school to become a teacher. And when I got the education degree, going through high school, nobody would have chosen me most likely to be a teacher. Never. Was not a straight A student, was not a B student, had a lot of C's peppered off in that report card. And there were times when I probably should have got a D or 2 in math, but because I could be funny, a lot of times I got a C instead of a D in math. Mm-hmm. Now, being funny, you can slide into a lot of things. Well, whenever I went to school to become a teacher, I thought I was going to be an elementary school teacher because 3rd grade is what I wanted. 3rd grade is whenever they take that big, fat, ugly test that tells them if they're successful or if they're a failure. So I wanted to be the teacher who wouldn't say, now none of that's true on success and failure, but that's what the world tells you on paper.
Right.
And I never did good on those standardized tests. Never. So I wanted to be that teacher who went in there and did all those things, helped kids and got them to where they could pass those tests and all of that. Well, I was in that interview, and this woman who was the principal, we'd been on the interview for about an hour, and it was a big, huge table with a lot of people on it, probably 10 people at that table. And I'm at the end, and they're interviewing me, and she said, "You are not an elementary teacher." And I said, "I am." I said, "I want to teach 3rd grade. I am. That's what I've always wanted to do." She said, "No, you're not." She said, "You are middle school all the way." She said, you have a middle school opening? I said, oh, I am 12-year-olds? No. She said, oh, I've been in this long enough to know you're that one. So after an hour, she sent me up to middle school, and I got that job, and I taught middle school for almost 15 years. And I will tell you that in middle school, you give me a 12-year-old all day long, that lady pegged me. If I could make those kids laugh, they would learn anything that I had to teach them. I taught history, reading, and English. And when you think about history, people will say, I hate history. Well, my whole goal then was to make them love history. That was going to be the best class because it was full of stories and it could be fun. And so that's what I did for a long time. And I loved every single second of it. But what I realized, look, I knew I would never retire from that. But that was the start of what I do now because I still have an audience. God just changed the audience. I still make the audience laugh at the beginning. And then I teach them something that goes straight to the heart. I do funny, and then I always transfer over into the serious. Sometimes people will say, well, want to bill me as a comedian. And I always say, no. That's not what I do. I may make people laugh with humor, but there's a point to that. And the Lord taught me a long time ago that if I would do it that way, that people would learn from what I say. And that has been a part of what I've done for a very long time. I love what I do. There have been so many students who have come back and said that I made a difference in their life. But let me tell you, there were a lot of people along the way that made a difference in my life too. Mm-hmm. And so I think life comes full circle like that. And I wish I could just turn that off. But you know, this is one of those old school landlines in my office.
You still got one of those?
I still have one of those in my office. I know, it's crazy. You know,
I love it.
You always got everything else cut off on my Mac. But this old school thing, I tell you what, that's just real life for you. That's unscripted. Right?
It is unscripted. Literally, that is my life. So let me tell you a few things as you were talking. One, in third grade, they thought I was an idiot. And I took a test. You will appreciate this as a third grade teacher. I took a test and I'll never forget this. My mama, God love her, and she's with Jesus now, but she fought for me. And we met with a counselor, and that counselor, I'll never forget this. I don't remember a lot of things in my life, but I won't forget that counselor said, you know, he's not an idiot. He's actually brilliant. And I'm not saying I'm brilliant. I'm saying a test doesn't define who you are.
That's exactly.
And you probably know that better than anybody as a third grade teacher. That test. And so any mama, any dad, anybody listening to this today, a test in third grade does not define who you are. And my mama fought for me. And I'm still not the brightest. I'll never be that. But I know that some counselor somewhere said he's actually brilliant. It's just not in the classroom. And that's one thing. And the other thing I would say is that you are encouraging so many people through your experience. And, you know, your calling was a teacher, but now your calling is very, very different, as is mine. I left corporate America on stages and platforms, and I in some crazy way, shout out Rachel Wojo, who is incredible. Love her. Shout out Rachel Wojo, because for some reason I got to share a platform with you, you know, and that's just Jesus and Rachel Wojo. I might need to write a book called Jesus and Rachel Wojo. I don't know, but no, somehow I got to be on a platform with you. And I think that day I said, I don't know what I'm doing here. I really don't. But, you know, Jesus had me there for that moment, and it's been amazing since. And I'm on with you today because of that. And so how has your life, actually, I have one more thing. Let me pivot. Welcome to Unscripted. I think Robin Williams had a quote once, and I don't remember what it is, so I won't even try to recreate it. He said something about the people that make people laugh understand what it feels like to be alone. And I don't think that's the exact quote. I'm not sure if that's the exact quote. But, you know, a lot of people tell me I make them laugh. Well, that's awesome. But I know what I feel like in my heart. So let me ask you, because you do make people laugh. You are incredibly joyful. And I think we deflect our pain to make others laugh. Is that true for you?
I would totally agree with that. I know I don't know where you fall in the birth order, but I'm the oldest. And so the oldest child is not going to process pain like all your other children. And for me, pain meant that if I could laugh, if I could make something funny out of something, then I didn't have to feel the pain. I could dull the destruction. I could get onto something else and roll on. And I'll tell you, I'm not a person, even today, who likes to sit in a puddle of pain. That's not me. I'm not a puddle of pain sitter. Oftentimes I will say, you can't soar on wings as eagles if you keep waking up feeling like a chicken nugget. And I'm actually, now, are there hard things that we've been through? Oh, you better believe there's hard things we've been through, because life has lost some of the lackluster at certain points in our lives. Yes, just like everybody else, life has lost some of the lackluster, but how do we deal with it? Robin Williams, dealt with it with laughter, but when he was alone, he dealt with terrible depression. I will tell you that I had a small bout with depression several years ago. And I used to say, depression, just snap out of it. And then God let me have a taste of that so that there was no snap out of it. And as far as being alone, people like us, people see us as extroverts. I know I saw you up on the stage. I saw you out there in that hallway. You make people laugh. You're an extrovert, but you got to have alone time too.
Yeah. I'm an extrovert introvert.
That's it. And being alone does not bother me one bit. As a matter of fact, I need it a lot of times.
I prefer it.
But we can do people. Because God has gifted us with the ability to be able to do that. I am not a TV watcher ever. I'm a book reader. And most people would not believe that. I love a good book. I have stacks and stacks of books. And as a matter of fact, there was a lady I met at Speak Up. Her name was Kathy Burris. And she handed me this book. And you can see my airline tickets in there. She handed me this book at Speak Up. And I read that book in the air. And so that was my bookmark right there. But I always have a book with me. And I sink myself into the words of a book. I'm not a fiction reader. Don't give me fiction. Give me real life, real stuff.
Yeah.
Give me
stories.
Yes. Give me stories. Give me overcomers. Give me all of that stuff. And as far as being an empath, I cry when people cry. There are some things I'm just choking up thinking about that. See, that's how crazy it is.
No, it is.
Whenever I speak to an audience, and I have one talk called Forgive for Good. And it goes through the things that we have to forgive in life, the detours that we've taken, the things that were taken from us, the things that we did, the things that people did to us. And let me say this, we actually have to forgive all of the feelings that were associated with that as well, because just the name don't cut it. You got to do all of the feelings. I always take my glasses off. These are actually bifocals sitting on top of my head. I will take them off and put them on top of my head, because during that part of the top, tears are streaming down people.
Yeah.
And if I see that, tears are going to stream down mine too. And not that that's a bad thing, because, being able to share a tear with people from time to time, there is nothing better. Sometimes I love words. I love words, whether they're spoken from a stage or they're read from a book or they're written. I love words. But there's a time, Aaron, when words are not needed and tears are. And that hug is. And patting someone's hair, no words, just empathy.
Yeah. I have a friend from high school that introduced me to empathy. And I think for a long time, I thought I was just a softie. You know what I mean? I wasn't manly. I think the world tells us we need to be manly. At the end of the day, I'm an empath. Now we have labels for these things, and that's a whole nother podcast for another day. But I didn't realize I was an empath, and now I embrace it. And I have another friend that's an empath, and he works with some of the less fortunate in Charlotte. And one of the things he told me is you got to get uncomfortable with people. Like, I can talk all I want, and we're in a world now, social media and politically, all this stuff. We can talk, we can tweet everything we want. We can get up on a stage and say whatever we want. But if I'm not willing to get uncomfortable with somebody and feel what they're feeling, to your point, hug on them, love on them in a such a positive way to say, I feel you. I literally, as empaths, we do feel you. And it is hard. It is a superpower, and I'm so thankful that I wish Paul would have mentioned it somewhere in that second half of the Bible. He would have mentioned empaths, like, hey, y'all going to go through it. Like, you're going to go through it because that's how God designed us. But that is how God designed us, is to sit with people and literally not just listen, but feel and hurt with them. Have you found that? Because I know you're on stage and I know you do a lot of those things, but I know you're also sitting on that front porch with somebody tipping your coffee cup, as you say, every day. How do you deal with that as an empath? Because we also, as empaths, so let me ask that question different. As empaths, we also need a release. I can carry the umbrella for everybody. My arm gets tired and sometimes I got to put it down. How do you put the umbrella down? And I know that you will carry that umbrella until your arm falls off. But at the same time, as an empath, we got to know when to fold up the umbrella for a minute and take care of ourselves. How do you do that?
That's right. I'm going to jump in here and say that, a lot of people come to me. I get a lot of prayer requests because of what I post on my Facebook ministry page. A lot of people will message me and they'll tell me all of the rough spots and the places that they've been cold cocked from the crisis, and hard times. And so I will pray with people. And sometimes that gets so heavy. It's a friend of mine, her name's BJ Garrett and Denise Bowens, both of them. They always say, Tammy's the cry. Tammy's going to cry. Tammy's going to cry. But, I'm also called an encourager. But there's those times whenever the encourager needs to be encouraged. And the way that happens for me is I walk away from social media. I live on a lake. And what I love to do is set everything down, go outside, listen to the sounds. And then I love to get in a convertible with some friends.
I love it.
Take off with the wind blowing in my hair. Who cares if you get all tangled up? No. But just take off and just walk away from things for a while. Because when you're in ministry, you do deal with a lot. And I'm not saying I'm not grateful for that. Because I look at what I do and what God has called me to do as living in the bullseye part of life. So many people don't feel like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But there are times whenever I have to, things get real heavy, and I have to set it down. And even in my own life, I've hit those slick spots of times whenever life wasn't easy. I went through a divorce in my mid-20s. That is not something that I about from a stage unless the Holy Spirit starts to pound me about it. And when you're a speaker, you're speaking to a crowd, but you're listening for the Lord. And whenever I'm told to bring that in, a lot of times I won't lie. I'll battle it and I'll say, Lord, I don't want to. But then I get scared he's going to break my hip or something, So I don't want to wrestle with an angel or anything like that.
That's right. I don't need a broken hip. I'm old enough as it is.
That's right. So therefore, I'll give in. And when I give in, I will always see how whenever I do tell that story of massive forgiveness, that somebody needed that, or I start to see the tears fall because somebody needed to know that I may talk about forgive for good, but let's hear what you went through, Tammy. I'll sum it up pretty quick. I got married as a teenager. Me and this guy did everything wrong in a marriage. I'm not saying we didn't do some right things too, but everything that could be done wrong in a marriage, we did. I'm not a person who's going to blame everybody else and not blame myself. So he did things, I did things. And we got to where we just could not stand each other. We had a beautiful child from our marriage, but our marriage was not beautiful. And the marriage ended about my mid-20s. Now, I have been married to my husband, Davis, now for 28 years. Love every single second of that man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me just tell you, though, I'm going to back up a little bit. Because I was a person who I was not going to let what happened in my life when I was a teenager and into my mid-20s destroy my entire life. And I'm going to be the first to tell you, that man is a good guy now. I'm a much better woman than I was back then. He's a much better man than he was back then. And we both love the Lord. Well, we made our peace a long time ago. We forgave for good a long time ago. But my husband, Davis, and I were in bed one night and the phone rang and it was his wife. And she said, Tammy, we had a ministry meeting and they asked if anybody knew Tammy Whitehurst, if we could get her to come speak for our church. Now, it's one thing to totally forgive, to sit through football games together, to enjoy each other's company. It's another thing to let your whole church know the man about to get up on the stage. And they will find out. You know, people find out. The woman about to get up on the stage was married to your man. That's a tough one for a woman. And when she asked me, and I love her. I will call her friend. I'd do anything with her. I hesitated for a moment and I said, yes. Because part of me, I was told one time, don't ever tell people that you ever went through divorce as a Christian, especially as a women's speaker or a speaker. Don't tell people that you went through that because that's speaker suicide. So therefore, I held it real tight inside. And let me just be the first to tell you, secrets will make you sick. Secrets will make you sin because you'll lie to cover up the secret, or you'll just, what I call little white lies, you just skirt around it because you don't want anybody to know that kind of stuff. We have to be so careful of the words we use because when somebody said those words to me, that will be speaker suicide. Nobody will ever want to hear you on a stage again if they know that you've gone through that. Well, needless to say, that was totally wrong. However, as I was sitting in the bed that night and she asked me if I would speak, and I hesitated, and she had hesitated. Whenever they asked if anybody knew me that could pull that connection there. And I said, you know what? I would love to do that. Yes, I will do that. And I got off the phone and I cried and cried. And I told my husband, I said, you know, this is when you might think forgiveness has come full circle. But this is when you have forgiven for good and it's come full circle. And when I spoke at their church, because she has come to several things where I've spoke at and brought her friends, and I always introduce her as a friend. I never told anybody that I was married to her man. You know, when I was a teenager.
Let's go.
For a little while. And it was just a totally different thing. And we sat together at the table. She said to me, can you feel that people are watching us? I said, oh, I can, girl. I can feel it. But you know what we're showing them? And I looked at her and I said, we're showing them peace that surpasses all understanding. Because most people, a lot of people get hung up on hating who they once loved.
Right.
a lot of people get so hung up on hating and that they carry that into their life. And that decision is what they will look like for the rest of their life, because that makes them so bitter.
Mm.
And you can either let that go and you can forgive for good. And you can admit that mistakes were made. Covenants, promises were broken. But I will tell you this, a covenant that you make before the Lord, that's not broken.
Mm.
So therefore, forgive, because God tells us that right in his word, it says God hates divorce, and Satan will use that and he'll hang people up on that.
Right.
He will tell them that God hates them. God doesn't hate you. He hates divorce. And the reason why he hates divorce is because of the pain that it causes down the road, the pain that it causes people, children, all of the pain that the enemy can take from that and wear you out, wear you down, and sometimes even win you over.
Mm.
That's why we have to forgive for good. And that, for me, was one of the biggest hurdles that I ever had to jump. And let me tell you, I'm not a runner. You've formed up like a runner or an athlete like you.
Right.
So
I'm not an athlete either. Good Lord, you saw me. I used to be. I used to could. That's why my hoodie says athlete-ish.
Yeah.
Come on, girl. Seriously.
Let me tell you, that can be hard. And I know for you, see, you were cool back in the day because you drove a Monte Carlo.
You did way too much homework on me.
I always do homework on who's going to talk to me on a podcast, but I drove a Pinto. And so
you couldn't get hit from behind, or that thing was up.
You better believe it. But that's how it is in life. You can't get hit from behind. Or over. Yeah. You've got to look at what's coming to hit you. Yeah. Face to face. You've got to walk through those dark days, not skirt around them, not try to laugh over them, not try to act like they never happened, keep it a secret, bury it down. But what you've got to do is walk through those dark days and know that God is with you every single step of the way, because it says that weeping may last for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Yeah. We don't know how long the weeping's going to last, but we are assured that joy comes in the morning. But we got to get through the dark days to get through the light, to get to the light. That is part of that's just something that for me, that was a huge hurdle, because there's so many words that go with divorce. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you, the best word that can ever go with divorce is forgiveness. Forgiveness.
And that was hard. That one's really hard when you have, if we've taken our vows seriously, if we really meant what we said on that day, not just the fanfare, not just the expensive wedding, at least in the North, we spend a lot of money on those. But if we really meant what we said, that's the hardest part. And I don't know that people have that. We need to have like a whole series of podcasts, because I think you and I could just unbreak a lot of things. But, and I could probably go on a rant here, but no, I've seen enough people go through it. I've had family members that have gone through it, and I have family members who are blessed today on both sides, the husband and the wife, that are now in better situations. And so to your point, yeah, I know what scripture says. I get that. I don't want to get off track. I get that. But at the same time, I see people that are thriving today. We're just giving people the on-ramp to everything that is you. And so, and I have taken enough, so much of your time, and I promise you, we need to do like a whole series. So trust me, offline, we're going to talk. We're going to talk, because I think every year I do a series called Grace Week leading up to Easter. And I think I might have the person that I need to go through Grace Week with. So anyway, okay. All that said, you have just given just giving us just such a small sample size of who you are and how you are impacting lives and taking your story and just, gosh, changing lives, including I didn't even hear you speak. I just knew I have to talk to her. And that's just your presence in a room, even that without a word spoken, Jesus is using it. How do people find you? You speak, you are involved in a lot of things now, and God is using you in such incredible ways. How can people find you that are listening to this podcast?
Well, I will tell them, I want to say one thing real quick. Speakers, wordy people, always,
right.
Always notice the unnoticed. Because when we notice the unnoticed, how beautiful are the feet of those that bring good news. All of a sudden our feet begin to sparkle. Don't just notice the people who stand out. Also notice the unnoticed, because
absolutely,
because let them stand up.
Right.
There is something about underdogs. I love underdogs.
Love
I love to show people what they can do when the world has told them what they can't. All right.
Yes.
Here we go. As far as
okay.
They can go to my website, tammywhitehurst.com. I also run a morning devotional Monday through Friday on my speaker page on Facebook, and that's Tammy Whitehurst Speaker. And there's a lot of people who I converse back and forth with. And I'm going to tell you, God is good. Even when life doesn't feel so good, God is good. And a merry heart does good like medicine, Aaron. And we all need a whopping dose of a merry heart. And God created laughter. And it does get through what we're going through.
Yeah. Okay, one point of counsel and then one last question for you. My point of counsel to you is the great philosopher Ed Sheeran. I don't think it's in scripture, but Ed Sheeran once said, I gave all my oxygen to people that could breathe. And so empath to empath, listen to the wisdom of the great philosopher Ed Sheeran, and don't give all your oxygen to people that can breathe, but keep doing what you do. Okay. Because I think when we give all our oxygen to people that can breathe, we end up in a place that we can't now give oxygen to people that can breathe. Okay. So that's just my wisdom from the great philosopher Ed Sheeran and his red hair. I love that guy. I went to a Taylor Swift concert once and he was the opener. And I looked at my daughter, she was 13, and I said, this guy sucks. I swear to you, I said, this guy's horrible. He sucks. And it was Ed Sheeran. And so anyway, okay. But the greatest line, one of the greatest lines, and it has been so important to me as an empath, is I gave all my oxygen to people that could breathe. Let's not do that. Okay. And I love you. I love you enough to say, I'll say that. Okay. So here's my question. What would you tell your younger Tammy? Where you are today, what would you tell your younger self? Dear younger Tammy.
Oh, man. I would tell her, don't take yourself so seriously, because nobody else. I would tell her to trust God more than you trust yourself. And I would tell her to give up my will and trust His will. Because I am one bull-headed, stubborn Southern woman. But I tell you what, there is a scripture that says, surely mercy and grace shall follow you all the days of your life. Well, the key word is follow. You've got to step out so mercy and grace can follow you. You got to go forward. You got to move forward and not get stuck. And I wish I could have learned that a long time ago instead of learning it by this age. Because I'm going to tell you, Aaron, from diapers to dates to pins, it's a quick trip. Man. Sorry, see, I do that. I go from serious to just downright silly in the same sentence.
Yeah. Well, I think that's who we are, right? And that's who we are. And this is not the last podcast. I hope this is not the last podcast we're ever going to do, because we're already 40 minutes in, and I don't want to lose people. And so it is so important to me. But my goodness, that's what we do. At least for me. And that's why I feel like we are stitched together now, whether you like it or not. You get out your scissors, because we're stitched together now. And I just feel like we both understand each other. It's easier to laugh, to turn it to joy. And we talked about that earlier. It is easier to turn it to joy, but you're doing incredible things. Can you give me all the links one last time before we log off? So I'm going to follow you until you come back.
It was just, you call me, you email me, whatever. I am here, buddy. I'm here.
I love it. I love it. Give me all your links.
TammyWhitehurst.com. And if you go to Facebook, Tammy Whitehurst Speaker. If you go on YouTube, you're going to find me on YouTube as well. I don't do Instagram, even though I'm told that I should, because I got bad
It's the
hacks.
worst.
And they were
I hate it.
pictures. So I just took it down. So anyway, that's where you can find me. But I answer my own emails. I answer my own Facebook messages. That's me. And I'd love to be back again. Thanks, Aaron, for what you do.
Oh, let's do this. Let's do this as soon as possible. Where are you next? Because you speak quite often. Let me ask you that. Is that on your website as well, where you're going to be next, where people can find you?
Yes, I have a calendar on my website, and it has everything laid out there. This week, I am talking to educators. At 1,500 that I talk to tomorrow at a university here. And what I'm talking to them about is don't give up. Don't give up on the good. Don't give up on it. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And then I'm going to Chicago next week, where I will be talking with John Gager on Moody Broadcasting. So it's just fun.
You're incredible. You're incredible. Make sure you're giving yourself oxygen to breathe.
Yes.
All right. While you tip your coffee cup, make sure you're giving yourself oxygen to breathe. I love you. I'm so thankful for you. Thank you for coming on. And I look forward to when you come back again. And it'll probably be sooner than you imagine, because I'm going to bug you again. You're the best. Thank you. Safe travels. And thank you for spending time with us here on Unscripted today.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Unscripted Podcast. Make sure to review and share wherever you listen to your podcast. It really helps out our mission to encourage everyone to live life unscripted. Until next time, keep living life unscripted.